According to an NBC reporter and several other reports, the White House is on lockdown. Jeff Bennett says a federal law enforcement source tells NBC that beginning tomorrow, crews will build a non-scalable fence to secure the White House complex, Ellipse, and Lafayette Square. 250 National Guardsmen have been put on standby, reporting to Metro Police officials. We don't know what's going to happen. We do know that there are several prominent activist organizations preparing for something. And we have a tweet here from Andy No. Vague, ominous post in the Portland Antifa Telegram chat room that reads, quick reminder that it's totally cool to chill out for a couple of days in preparation. Catch up on Netflix, hit the shooting range, go hug your family. Big things are about to go down. I don't know what's going to go down. But I do know that everyone is preparing for it. From USA Today, stores brace for post-election unrest and possibility of violence, damage to businesses after presidential results. Fortress White House, the non-scalable fence. Secret Service prepares for potential unrest. Potential? No, I think it's going to happen. I think they've been planning it for some time. And the far left, is my understanding, plans to engage in some kind of, I don't know. I don't want to call it just unrest because they're organized. So operation, regardless of what happens. You see, the far left extremists have a great opportunity right now. We're not going to know who won. Donald Trump will potentially declare victory if he has a massive lead in certain states. They're arguing on the left. This means he's going to declare victory before he's even won. The problem with mail-in voting is that we do not know how many will be coming in. So even if we have 99.9% of precincts reporting with a Donald Trump landslide, they'll say no, because an indeterminate amount of ballots may come in and change that. Even if Trump is up, he would have to be up hundreds of thousands of ballots to where there's not enough population to actually swing that vote. So Donald Trump can declare victory if he wins. The left says otherwise. What happens? Well, in the ensuing chaos and the coming months, I only imagine the far left is going to engage in some kind of shenanigans. There's a leaked video where they talk about having guns because the people with guns win. There's videos where they talk about occupying buildings. They've mapped out DC. Things are going to get spicy. I hope you've been taking care to prepare for whatever it is you need to. And within reason. You know, I don't think they're going to come to every random house or apartment. At least not yet. A lot of people on the left try to use ridicule to make it seem like what I'm saying is wrong, or, you know, just to mock the idea and push people away from it, that the far left will get violent and cause harm to people. And the reason many of them do this is that ridicule is an excellent tool for discrediting someone or an idea. It's so silly to assume that the far left will end up going to your house. Are you crazy, Tim? They already did. They went to Cassandra Fairbanks' house, so she had to move. They went to Tucker Carlson's house, and they've gone to the homes of regular people in many different instances. In Portland, in the Pacific Northwest, where that text message says something big is going to go down, they've been going through residential neighborhoods on and off for months, chanting no justice, no sleep. Will they just randomly target you, average citizen? Maybe not. Maybe at some point. It's kind of like a lottery ticket. You don't know where they end up. But I tell you this, if you got an American flag on your porch, oh, you betcha. They did that. The New York Times reported it. They went to someone's house and said, if you do not remove that flag, we will burn your house down. What do you think happens when we don't know who won the presidential election? Chaos will ensue. Riots will erupt. Trump will likely try to stop them. They're putting up a massive non-scalable fence around the White House. And the left will use this as justification to claim that Trump is staging a coup or trying to steal the election or something like that. There are two worldviews right now. One is that Trump is crooked, corrupt. He stole the election. He colluded with Russia. The other is that, Trump is the duly elected president and that he's being held back by a corrupt and distasteful and distrustful group of Democrats and crony establishment elites. And there are kind of some people on the right side that are like, people like me, Trump's kind of bad. He's not that bad. The alternative is worse. Well, the two parent faction worldviews, or I should say the most important, is the left's. They believe that Trump is evil. They believe he's an authoritarian despot. Many of them don't actually know what's going on or why it's going to happen. That means if Donald Trump calls out the National Guard to defend the White House from people with explosives, the media will just tell them it's Trump suppressing the citizens who are trying to uphold our Constitution. Yep. The far leftists who have called for communist revolution, socialist revolution, or critical race theory intersectionality, which are all fairly similar. Kamala Harris recently put out a video where she says we all should end up at the same place. What is what is that supposed to mean? She said, with equality, we're all given the same resources to compete with one another, but with equity, we all end up at the same place. Maybe we don't want to all end up at the same place. Maybe it's nice to have something to strive for, to be the best of the best of the best. Not everyone will be the best. Sometimes people will be just okay. And that's okay too. But why should we cut off the tall grass for the sake of the short grass? I don't know what you want to say about what she's saying there. But I already know that a lot of people are going to claim that she's pushing, outright communism or whatever. Let's read about what's going on with the White House lockdown. Fortress White House. Crews will begin building non-scalable fence around the complex tomorrow as Secret Service prepares for potential unrest. They say the White House is taking no chances for Election Day, as crews will begin constructing a non-scalable fence to secure the executive mansion, the Ellipse in Lafayette Square. It has been reported, and of course, this is coming from the Daily Mail. The potential for unrest has also prompted Metro Police in Washington, D.C. to put 250 National Guardsmen on standby, according to Jeff Bennett of NBC News. Cities across the nation have boarded up shops, storefronts, office buildings, restaurants, hotels, and other properties in anticipation of possible violence related to Tuesday's presidential election. The reported plans to further fortify the White House indicates the level of concern among law enforcement officials. In June, it was reported that President Trump, First Lady Melania Trump, and their son Barron were rushed to a secure underground bunker in the White House after Black Lives Matter protesters breached one of the barricades set up outside the complex. Hundreds of demonstrators had gathered outside of the White House in the days and weeks following the May 25th police-involved death of George Floyd. The massive crowds prompted authorities to erect a massive iron fence around the perimeter of the White House. On June 1st, members of the National Park Service, U.S. Park Police, and other security forces lobbed chemical agents and punched and clubbed demonstrators and journalists in clearing Lafayette Square near the White House just before crews raised the new fence. Trump administration officials have denied federal forces at the time of the forceful removal of crowds were making way for the president to stage photos nearby. Lafayette Square has historically been one of the country's most prominent spots for demonstrations and other public advocacy. Also closed off by yards of new fencing is the Ellipse, a 52-acre park behind the White House, which features several monuments and is part of the president's park. The Ellipse is a public space and often referred to as the nation's front yard. The nation's capital, like cities throughout the country, are on edge as Election Day approaches. Downtown businesses are already boarding up their windows in anticipation, and Police Chief Peter Newsham promised on Thursday that his entire department would be working on Election Day. In Washington, dozens of overlapping law enforcement agencies control certain landmarks and public spaces. Police officials have restricted the days officers can take off around the election and have spent tens of thousands of dollars on chemical irritants and other less than lethal riot control munitions after much of the agency's stockpile was depleted this summer. Here we can see a photo. A man walks by a boarded up building in D.C. as stores, businesses, and offices prepare for possible election-related unrest. My question is, why is this just deemed normal? Why are we just accepting that it's going to happen? And it is. Shouldn't we have more security forces, some kind of checkpoint process? I don't know. I'm not a fan of authoritarianism. I'm not a fan of, draconian lockdowns like the things we're seeing in Europe. Decisions have to be made, and it's hard to know where that line is drawn. Right now, in Europe, for instance, notably Paris, if you want to leave your house, you need to have your papers. Seriously, I am not exaggerating. You need to have papers indicating that you are allowed to leave your home because of COVID. There will always be an excuse. Authoritarianism will never just show up one day and demand you give up your rights for no reason. There will always be a reason. Right now, the fear is the reason is unrest in the United States. Within reason, I'm willing to accept some curtailing of rights for security, but only within reason. If there are legitimately large groups of people that are destroying and burning things down and tearing things down, and the police say, stay in your home, we're going to deal with this, I say, okay. It's a very temporary measure meant to stop violent rioting. If someone says to me, wear a mask, we're in a pandemic, I'll say, okay, whatever, I don't care. It's not a big deal to wear a mask. But at what point do we draw that line? For some people, the line is much closer than it is for me. For some people, they say, I'm not wearing a mask, you can't make me. And they get into fights, and you see these videos go viral. In Europe, I'm certain that the line has well been crossed when they say you cannot leave your home unless you have papers. Of course, this has led to a mass exodus of the cities and violent rioting. For what reason they're doing this, I can only assume COVID, but it definitely feels like the excuse the authoritarians need to enforce draconian laws and stop the populations from doing whatever they want. I saw someone post about locking things down, using war powers or a national mandate. And I said, don't you have a line somewhere where you will not accept draconian authority? I'm not going to allow a government to have that kind of power. But it's tough. It is. Because we're dealing with a pandemic. And so sometimes there are good reasons. What do you do? Perhaps the issue is that no matter what happens, when a society grows large enough, authoritarianism just happens. You look at China and they're massive and they were welding people into their homes. But what happens if you actually have an outbreak of some kind of disease or a pandemic that's going to destroy everything? Do you just let it happen? I think the issue is you need to make sure that your population is well prepared to be self-sufficient. And if they're not, then you have a societal breakdown. You can't just become the despotic authoritarian dictatorship, because then you've already lost everything. And I think we're dangerously close in some ways. I think we're dangerously close if Joe Biden wins, not Donald Trump. No one is putting up barricades. No one is putting up fencing because they're scared about Trump supporters. Nobody is going out and buying guns and guarding their homes because of rampant waves of Trump supporters marching through the streets, destroying things. While there may be some people who are buying guns because the media told them the evil far right will come for them, most people buying guns are probably doing it because of the riots. I have to wonder if the people who are aware of the riots, who have bought guns because of the riots, are going to be voting for Donald Trump. If that's the case, then suburban women will be voting for Donald Trump. I don't exactly know what's going to happen. I do know that D.C. is going on to a hard lockdown. And there's going to be a lot of journalists out there. It's going to be very dangerous. And if I had to make a prediction, I'd say people are going to die. I'm not making as an extreme a prediction as, say, Scott Adams. You may have seen the segment I did yesterday. Scott Adams said before, and I mentioned this, that if the Democrats win, Republicans will be hunted. Of course, he was mocked by basically everybody for it, except for his supporters. And even I rolled my eyes, criticized it, until they killed Aaron Danielson in Portland, where a far leftist literally hunted a Republican, stalked him, and then killed him. It's not like it's happening in a widespread fashion. But we can see that what Scott Adams said isn't outside the realm of possibility. It literally happened. Will it happen in a mass scale? I don't know. But considering we've seen things like that, considering we've seen people get shot randomly, like in Provo, Utah, by the far left, in D.C., I would not be surprised if we see death. I think they're gonna burn down tons of buildings. I think they know exactly what their plans are, and they're going to torch and destroy. In a leaked video, we can hear them, as I mentioned, talking about whoever has the guns wins. The issue right now is that what we haven't seen in the past that we're seeing now, federal employees on the side of the extremists, because the orange man is bad. Therefore, they have no choice to join in. Another way to look at it is that the far left has infiltrated our federal government, or at least their ideology has become pervasive among these individuals, and now they're actively organizing with extremists on the far left to destroy the foundation of this country. There's a reason why we have a written constitution. It prevents the government from becoming despotic and evil. Now, the government is becoming despotic and evil in many ways. Let's talk foreign policy, huh? But the Constitution has still protected the rights of the citizens. And so long as we have the written Constitution word for word, it is very difficult for them to suppress our rights. A written Constitution cannot be forgotten. An unspoken Constitution can be changed, altered, and argued. But the written words, it's much more difficult. Our founding fathers knew this. They knew what had happened with the crown and why they needed to safeguard against these things. You'll notice no one really ever talks about the Third Amendment because it's never been an issue. It was because during the Revolutionary era, regulars were being placed in the homes of many people in the colonies. And they felt that this was a violation of people's property rights. So they created, I believe it's the Third Amendment. You can't quarter soldiers in people's houses. Isn't it interesting how they thought that was so important? Not something we've ever really had to deal with. But they've taken safeguards against what they see may actually occur. Some of these things don't really happen. And it's not really because of the Third Amendment. We don't need to house soldiers in people's homes anymore. We can rapidly construct massive buildings, and they can set up tents and other facilities very, very quickly and easily. The other amendments, however, very much have protected us to a great degree. Even those who would want to go out and demonstrate. It's a little bit of a double-edged sword in that capacity. But right now, the left wants to do away with the Constitution. In an article from the New Republic, they actually argued abolishing the written Constitution and maybe having a spoken one or something like that. My friends, I feel like we are dangerously close to the precipice. If not, we've already gone over it a long time ago. I say that quite a bit, actually. Since the start of the riots, have we already gone off the edge? Perhaps we have. And perhaps the edge was when federal government employees decided to take it upon themselves to destroy a duly elected president, his administration, his supporters, and now do everything in their power, by any means necessary, to shut down the election. You see, in 2016, Trump wasn't supposed to win, at least for these people. He did. We then saw the likes of, Comey and Obama and Biden engage in some nefarious practices, at least to the best of our understanding so far. The Durham report hasn't come out yet. We know that there was an effort to either get Michael Flynn, Trump's, at the time, acting national security advisor, fired or prosecuted. Ultimately, they tried going after him with a Logan Act, but then just got him to plead to lying to the FBI. And apparently, he actually never really did lie to them. It was a frame-up. Now they're not letting the government drop the charges against him. There's a judge who's actually blocking this because if Donald Trump loses, they are going to destroy Michael Flynn. It really does feel like we are facing some kind of revolution, and it's happening in the best way that they could do right now. What people don't understand about how history works, how historical events and politics and war and conflict works, is that it's never just going to be like we saw in the books. It's never going to be like we saw in the movies. I think it's funny when people have, I was recently watching a video where this YouTuber fires a gun into the air as a warning shot. There's no such thing as a warning shot. And there's no such, and you don't fire a gun in the air. That's ridiculous. I saw the gun owners screaming in this video saying, that's a movie myth. Warning shots. It's not a thing. You don't do that. People think conflict, war, crisis will look like the movies. It won't. It'll look like it's happening. It'll look like what's happening right now. Street level insurgency and two growing factions with disparate worldviews. One, on the left, they are constrained by a media apparatus that would tell them what is and is not, and they will blindly believe it. The other, wildly distrustful of that media apparatus, and they won't believe it. Unfortunately, that means for both factions, there are some pitfalls. On the right side, there are people who believe wacky things because they've watched some wacky videos. On the left, it means they believe wacky things because they're being lied to by the media apparatus, notably Russiagate. Both factions have their faults, and both are waged in this cultural civil war that may be about to go hot, because I don't think anyone is going to accept the results of the election. Tomorrow, election day, the media organizations are not going to give us results. None of them will. Donald Trump may try to call victory if it looks like he's won, But they've straight up said the only circumstance in which there will be a victory is if it's a Joe Biden victory. That's right. If Joe Biden wins all of these states, they'll just say he won. If Trump wins all of these states, they'll say, no, we're waiting until the mail-in votes come in, which is very, very strange, especially considering so many Democrats have been warning not to mail in your ballots. Of course, Republicans, many on the right now, believe the 2018 election was also stolen. See, I said in 2018 that Republicans were going to win. And a day later, I made a video saying I was right. Look at that. Republicans won. But then something weird happened. They started to find a bunch of mail-in ballots saying, oh, these are coming in. We got to count them. And then the Democrats flipped everything. And the Democrats all started cheering, saying, see, we actually won. It was mail-in ballots. Here's the thing. There was no COVID in 2018. Why did so many people mail in their ballots in so many places? There was no reason for it, and no one ever asked any questions about it. It just happened. And then with the power of the House, they moved to impeach Donald Trump. I don't know. Maybe Trump really is a Putin and whatever, and maybe it's all crazy. And maybe both factions are just fighting for power and lying about it in every possible way. I'll take the side that errs on freedom and rejects violence and has signed many peace agreements in the Middle East. I don't think Donald Trump was supposed to win. I think they had plans. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, look at Trump got 3 appointments. They thought they were going to take everything, and they didn't. And if you look at what the World Economic Forum is talking about with the Great Reset, it seems like they lost a really great opportunity with having a Hillary Clinton presidency, because now Donald Trump has only bolstered the economy of the U.S., making it very, very hard for some kind of Great Reset. If you're not familiar with what it is, you can look at the World Economic Forum's website and read the Great Reset. They want some kind of reset of Western capitalism, whatever that means. Very much far left intersectionality. These ideologies are fringe and anti-American. In fact, critical race theory, as it was implemented in the federal government, is a violation of Title VII of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. Trump was right to ban it. Anyway, I digress. I'm going to go on a rant here, so I better wrap it up. The White House is locked down. Violence seems extremely likely. No matter what happens, no matter who wins. That's it. I don't know what comes next. It's like staring into the void. I can't make any predictions. I can only do what I think is right for myself. And what I did was I got away from cities. I'm away from the cities for sure. You can see mountains outside my window. Bought some guns, bought some ammo, bought some food. Not the most hardcore of prepping, to be completely honest. Probably did a pretty bad job. So, I'll have all the people on the right saying, Tim, you're not doing good prepping at all. I know. Not nearly prepared enough. The left is going to say, ha, 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 you're so dumb you prepped at all. Don't care. I'd much prefer to have a bunker with 30 years of food in it and not need it than whatever might end up happening. But I'll tell you, maybe here's what happens. Maybe Biden or Trump wins, everybody simmers down, and then that's it. Somehow I don't believe it. I don't believe it because we've seen widespread riots nonstop. I don't believe it because the rhetoric has reached insane proportions. I don't believe it because people have literally been killed on numerous occasions. And I don't believe it because we've seen what the Obama administration, the Democrats were willing to do and the lengths they were willing to go in order to destroy Donald Trump and his administration. In which case, I believe they will stop at nothing. I guess we'll see. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.